Hi, I'm Miss Pixley, and our school matters because our students are the future of our community.
Hi, I'm Mr. Ryden, and this is Our School Matters, a podcast where I talk to students, staff, teachers, administrators, and others involved with the Richland County Community Unit 1 School District in Olney, Illinois. Today, I speak with Mrs. Sue Pixley. She is the art teacher at the high school. I've known Miss Pixley for quite a while. She also does set decoration and dressing or set painting for the musicals, for the high school musicals that we do. So I've worked with her quite a bit on that. We got to talk quite a bit about both of our history in employment pre-teaching, as well as our kind of our thoughts about cross-disciplinary projects and integration of different subjects within our own and stuff like that. We also got to talk quite a bit about some personal family history, including some kind of personal family tragedies that we both share some similarities to and stuff that in our formative years growing up and dealing with the death of a parent. It was very good. It was good to talk to Pickles, as I nicknamed her years back, and I will assume that I'm the first one that came up with that. Please enjoy this interview. If you are listening to the podcast, of course, you can find this with video now on our YouTube and Facebook pages. I also have a note about that in this interview. The last 20 minutes of the interview, the video unsynced and then was lost with the multicam recorder we're using. So my apologies for that. It will just pop up with a little note about that on the screen, but you still have the audio for the entire interview. So here is Mrs. Pixley. Ms. Pixley, thank you so much for coming to talk to me today here on the podcast. So just to kind of get started, I thought I would ask how you've been faring this last 3 weeks. Has your classroom been a sweltering sauna like it has been in the rest of the school here, or?
Well, actually, it's not been too bad except for this week.
Oh,
Just like
really?
Friday, it started heating up, and over the weekend, it was so hot in there. I was
Yeah.
actually like it was 87 degrees, and I was trying to, do some grading after work, and it just wouldn't cool down. But I'm also firing the kiln every single day.
Yeah.
So you're adding 2,000 degrees in
Right.
a room, and I don't think it's able to keep up
Yeah.
right now. So it's just really hard.
Yeah, I think they said that it's at 50% right now, but yeah, it's been, oh boy, I swear every day in my room it's been 82 pretty much whenever there's all the students in. Oh,
I think
it's been a rough
the
week.
coolest today is 84 in my classroom.
Wow, yeah, you really have been getting it. I was having a bad time last. Today it's fine because the humidity's gone and it feels like there's more pushing. But for context to those watching or listening, we've had our air conditioner unit go berserk, go AWOL on us, and it has taken.
It's on vacation.
Apparently, they're shipping the replacement parts from the moon because they're still waiting
I
on
know.
parts or something. And it's been. I mean, I can deal with the heat. I don't love it. I run hot, so I'm easily uncomfortable in the heat. But it's been the toughest part for my perspective anyway. Is you got kids finishing up their final stuff for the year, and they
Trying to
are.
really push to get it done. And
Yes, and they
then there was
are.
graduation with those nylon
Yes.
zippered sleeping bags we had
Yeah.
to walking around in.
Yes.
So, yes, very warm indeed.
Yeah, it's been a challenging few weeks.
Like here upstairs, there's a couple specific spots in the building where it's just like, oh my gosh,
Oh,
I feel like I'm going to have a heat stroke.
Yeah, my
Right.
room's been pretty bad. The rusk gray windowless room has been a bit much, but anyway.
Try my kiln room.
Yeah, no, thank you. I didn't even think about the kiln, so that would probably be pretty awful. I wondered how I would go to I was going to the theater sometimes because it was nice and cool in there, but kids are just like nuts, and they just like you change the environment whatsoever, and it just throws off
Oh,
everything.
they can't concentrate.
They can't. Yeah,
They want to sleep.
New space,
drowsy.
or I'm
Right.
gonna lay my legs across the theater or throw paper balls at people. And I was like, well, we're going back up to the sweatbox, folks.
Oh, yes.
So, you have been teaching here since 18 or 19, or is it
16.
earlier? 16, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
The
2016
time
I came in.
flies, doesn't
Right.
it?
I came in the same year
Mhm.
Mr. Jones, our band teacher, did.
Right. Okay. Was that mid-year or am I misremembering?
No, we started both at the same in the fall of 2016
Okay.
because I had just left. Actually, Mrs. Hinckley came at the same time because
You both came from
Mrs.
Sisney.
Hinckley and myself both left this
Uh-huh.
Sisney High School. Well, I was actually the district-wide art
Mhm.
teacher, where she was the English teacher up at the high school, and so we both left there and both moved over to this school together.
Didn't we just get their vice superintendent or a vice principal that's going to be the vice superintendent here? Is that who just is that where he came from?
Who's that?
Oh boy, I can't remember his name. I shouldn't bring up stuff I can't
Kevin
remember.
Bowen?
Is that right?
Kevin
I
Bowen is
don't
the
know.
super.
No, he's the acting like I think he was the vice superintendent there.
There's
but
been a lot of changeover
there has been
since
a
I
lot.
left.
I know.
So,
I've heard
here and there, because I know
Yeah.
that even the superintendent that I was under, or that Mrs. Hinckley and I
Uh-huh.
were under, she left while we were there, and then
Oh, really?
like the year before we both left, they had a new one in, and she came from Louisville,
Yeah.
and then I think she's already gone, and
Yeah.
then now they had somebody else. So I really don't even know who's
Okay.
over there right now.
When I was in Georgetown, it was 4 or 5 superintendents within the 4 years I was there.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Well, think of how many
bad.
principals
It's
I've been.
bad. Maybe it was
I've
only
had 4
3.
principals
Yeah.
here.
Oh, we've gone through them here
And
like
we've gone
crazy,
through
too.
them, and also guidance.
Yeah,
I mean, all new guidance.
Yeah, guidance is turnover.
And so there's big turnovers in a lot of
It
places.
just does. And right now, too, I'm sure COVID, you could point something to that because it just changed a lot of the landscape of stuff. There also, I mean, there are obviously a lot of openings for teaching, administration, guidance, everything across the board.
Right.
People they'll take whoever they can get, you know?
Right, right.
And so
you're
that
hearing
opens
that
up a
quite
lot of opportunities for people that are
Oh, yeah.
either wanting to just move or want to move up, like kind of laterally through another district, go up to upper position,
still be
or they're
local, or
just sick
maybe
of it.
commute.
It could
Right.
be they're sick of a place.
Oh,
and-
yes, you're hearing quite a lot of changes there, and
Yeah.
even some of the former students here that I see, say, working at Walmart or somewhere, or coming back home for the summer, and they're talking about how even at the university level, they're saying, oh,
Really?
there's so
A
many
lot of
opportunities.
movement.
If you're in the education field, you can actually have a wide range where they're almost having headhunters. School
Yeah.
districts are having headhunters for these people that are
'Cause they
about ready
need
to.
them
Yes, they're
badly.
so a lot of districts are so desperate.
Yeah.
I believe, I don't know now, again, I haven't followed up too much, but I know whenever I left Sisney, they found a replacement, but she only lasted for a year.
Yeah.
Then they didn't have another replacement, so they shut the art program down over there. And then now
That's
the
really sad to hear.
the irony is the Spanish teacher is a part-time art teacher over there at the high school. So, she was teaching Spanish in
Yeah.
the morning, and then she was teaching art in the afternoon
Yeah.
or something such as that. So I'm glad that they have the program up and running. I don't know
Yeah,
about
me
the
too,
elementary
just
schools,
for
though.
those kids, but that is, it's something where you gotta, I think districts need to really take in the fact that like we need to retain our staff. Like you should be doing
There's a
everything
big
you
draw.
can
Yes, there's a big
to
draw. I think
maintain your staff.
I don't really think it's just almost at the district level. I believe it should be at the state level. I think
Mhm.
there should be some type of draw there that's, can really guarantee people are going to be happy.
Yeah.
Being in the educational field and to retain that and to stay with, the state or the school,
Yeah.
in some way or another.
Well, and also one of my big worries is like, we've got to fill these positions. We're pretty good at it. We're still getting people.
Right.
But when you get 4 candidates for a job you used to get 24, you got to assume that nothing against anyone. We just had some candidates here for a couple positions that were being looked at, and nothing against any of them. Not like I really see much of anything other than names, but you got to know that you're limited in your choices, and you might get really lucky. You get a superstar that shows up, and they're the absolute best candidate you could have had, or
Right.
you're getting somebody. You got to hire mid-year. The chances that you're going to get somebody that maybe left for a reason, another district that
Right,
was them
right.
instead of the district.
Right.
Once again, not saying anything about any in particular, but keeping talented staff, that the brain drain over time is
Right.
one thing I'm very worried about, because when you get people upset with the district for reasonable reasons, then you have to start thinking like, if they go, who takes their place? And then who takes the place of the other teacher that retires?
It's like a
and this one
domino
here,
effect almost.
And then your quality of education goes way down, and you get people that make mistakes and that do stuff and causes the district more problems. And it's just it's a cascading destruction that kind of goes through.
I know that whenever.
So in other words, appreciate us, people.
I know-
Keep us on your staff by making us want to stay there instead of driving us out of here.
Well, for that matter, I know that whenever I'm old school, I went out into the I call it out into the real world and worked for a long time
I was
before
going to
I
ask you
actually
about
did that.
this.
But what I did was in 2011, I think it is, that I applied for a job as a teaching position in Fairfield, Illinois.
Oh,
And so I just dropped off my application or resume and everything, and I said, well, I'd like to talk to the principal. Does he have a minute? So I walked in, I shook his hand, and I said, hey,
yeah.
because I'm used to doing that,
Yeah.
Out in the real world.
The
You went face to
private
face, you shake the
sector,
hand.
yeah.
Yeah, in the private sector, I always say the real world, but private
No,
sector.
it's most people know what you're talking about when you say the real world. Yeah.
Right. But I went out there and I said, hey, I just wanted to say hi, put a face to the name,
Yeah.
and say, I'm applying for this position and everything. And
That's a good idea.
he looks at my resume and he goes, now, what are you applying for? And I said, well, the art teaching position. He gives me a chuckle and he says, oh, well, okay. And I said, why? What's going on? He goes, oh, there's only 65 applicants for that job.
Yeah.
But for the history teacher position, there's 110.
Yeah.
And nowadays,
That's crazy.
It's down to 20 or whatever.
Or less.
So much.
I think we only had 4 or 5 for that English position that they didn't end up filling. They just decided not to get extra staff.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
I mean,
it wasn't that they, and also I should say, if there's anybody that was one of those people, it had nothing to do with the candidates. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the candidates. Oh, I know. I just didn't want to. I realized that could come off sounding like, well, we just aren't going to do it because there's nobody there. No, it was not the candidates. They just decided they weren't going to get
to fill the position.
Teacher at this point.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of positions, they sort of figure, the district looks back and decides whether or not they want to fill the position, or go in another direction or combine classes, because they also have to look at how much, what the population is,
for sure.
how many people are actually going to be in there, if there's going to be low attendance or, low number of students, maybe they can draw from another area or a teacher that's already teaching, and then have pickup classes, if you will, here and there. So each to me, each district creates, is able to manage their own way to make it work for them.
Well, there are just times where it's, for whatever reason. But I also, like what we were saying, though, about that, the number of applicants that was very familiar, because when I got riffed here, because I got riffed after my first year.
Yeah, you were talking about that.
And I've probably mentioned on this show before, too, but I went to 5, 6, 7 job interviews, and it was like, we had 30, and it was, I can't remember.
And you were fortunate to get an interview.
And I was fortunate to get an interview. I was like, well, I'm getting interviews in these ones. Like Gibson City I went to, they had online submission, and that was early. At that point, there wasn't the norm.
Not a lot of districts were doing that, right?
But it was like, I can't even remember. It seems like 300 or something like that. I might be blowing that number up from 130 or something, but it was a egregious amount every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got Georgetown and they offered, I was like, yes, and I ended up staying with them because they were in a tough time. But that's just not the case now. And it's not, people look at that like, oh, well, when's it going to swing back this way? You look at the enrolled number in colleges, and from my understanding, I haven't done deep research on this, but it's just
numbers have gone down across the board on almost all areas of study.
When you get all the news about just all this negative publicity about teachers, no wonder people don't want to go into it.
Oh yeah, the social media has a big impact on the interest within this career field, and I really think that it is challenging for us teachers that want to maintain it and want to actually encourage recruitment, if you will, just by being a teacher ourselves and being that leader, if you will, to showcase that other it's still going to be fun.
I'm so hard pressed. I was just kind of got lost in thought there of would I recommend to younger people that they go into teaching? Like, would I tell my own son that he should be a teacher? And when it comes to that one, that I'm more personal, or because I'm like, do I want this for him? Like, if he really cared about it, I'm sure, because he doesn't want to become a teacher. That is not.
I'm trying to encourage my own son to do that.
Yeah. Oh, he's just not interested. So I know he's interested in some other avenues, which I'm very happy with. But when I think about young people in general, it's like, if you're doing it just for a paycheck, but that's always been true about teaching. Like, you are barking up the wrong tree. It's still, it pays decently compared to my Denny's job that I had for 7 years, short order cook. I mostly get more respect than I did then, maybe. When I was in the kitchen and getting yelled at for pancakes all the day. Debbie. Just kidding. I miss you, Debbie. Yeah, it's just it just strains you out. There's some times where I get towards the end of a year and I just feel wrung out. I feel like somebody just like a towel, just like, and I'm just so on
This time of the
edge,
year
and
is so busy. I mean,
it
every
is. It's
night
rough.
you're trying to
Yeah.
gauge, okay, when can I clean my house? I haven't cleaned that
Yeah.
in a couple of weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
Just running home and doing
Yeah.
the dinner and dash
Mm-hmm.
and come back to school or,
And just that it ages you to have that tension of like, really got to crunch time and stay up tonight and get this stuff graded, or I need a better plan for this, or this is not working. Like, just if you have a kid that, even if you know they're not going to pass, but you know that they're an issue with like behavior, or even themselves, like you have kids sometimes that like you still love them even though they got a 20% because things are going on way worse in their life, but then you're stressing like, how am I going to work on this situation with this interpersonal thing? It's not just the grading and the planning, it's also like these very complicated intersocial, you know relationships
the
that
dynamics
it
between
just
the school and their
eats
home
at you
life.
after a while. Yeah,
And it does, and it
we
feels like
definitely
you're
see some of the
affecting that.
worst side of some of these kids. Like,
Right.
or we that's not quite how I meant it. I meant we see
We see a
how
side
a
of students,
good portion
how
of our
good,
population
right, because
has some real struggles, like
I mean,
real struggles to deal with.
I myself, as far as whenever I was growing up, I'm like, oh my goodness, as far I thought I was actually struggling. I mean,
Yeah.
here I had I'm a single mom, or I'm not a single mom. My mother was a single mother
Yeah.
because my father had died really young.
Yeah. Same
And
situation. I'm a single
yeah,
dad, except my mother died when I was 13 or
my
12.
mother was, my father died whenever I was 12,
Well, we had very
but did
similar
you have 10
background.
brothers and sisters?
No, oh my
Okay.
God, you got me. Fine, you got me. I have
Well,
one older brother, one younger sister.
right.
So,
So
but no,
I'm a middle child because I
yeah,
have 3 older
that
sisters,
is
3 younger sisters, 2
that's
older brothers, 2
deep
younger
in the
brothers.
middle when you have that.
Dead middle.
Can
Even
you
the ages.
can you say all their names in order very quickly?
Yeah, NKG, Steve Lee, Jim, Jill, Roy, Gwen, and Joan. I'm in the middle between Jim and Lee.
That's fantastic.
Right.
I love it.
Oh, you
Wow,
know that.
that
You know
is
that. Yeah.
that is rough though. I guess I'd forgotten that that had happened. So
Yes, I'm Catholic.
if yeah,
Yes, I'm
well,
a farmer's daughter.
there you go. Next few questions just
And-
taken care of really quick there.
And yes,
yeah.
my father was one of 11 as well.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's just tradition.
I mean, if you don't mind, like I talk pretty openly about my mother's death because I've been able to process and accept it over the many years. But what happened with your father? Was it?
My
Of
father
course, welcome
was.
to
My father
skip that.
had whenever he was in 8th grade. He
Mhm.
started as 8th grade, and for 2 weeks later, him and his younger sister, 2 years younger, both got rheumatic fever. And this was in the 1930s. I mean,
Uh-huh.
because he's a much older man,
Right. Yeah.
and he had rheumatic fever, which left his heart scarred.
Oh.
And of course, back then they don't have angiograms. They had
Right.
no way to really look and regulate,
Right.
what was actually happening to your heart, and
Uh-huh.
understanding that it was. He was just a very hardworking farmer, and
Mhm.
it was raining one day, and he climbs up the grain bin all the way to the top to shut the lids, because they're air drying the grain, and then he
Right.
climbs back down. And he turns around and walks into the barn and collapses
Yeah.
right then and there. And at the time, we wasn't really aware that he did have a weak. I mean, he had a weak heart, and we knew he had heart problems, but he was
But
never
there's
on
no
any
names
medication.
for it,
There
and
was
there's no diagnosis.
right,
and-
not like today. I mean, it's amazing what they can do today compared to what it was. But this is back in the 70s whenever I was a little kid. So,
Yeah.
I wasn't really aware of anything. And
Yeah.
and then my mother, I still remember a lot of people would come and she goes, "Oh, your mother is a saint or insane to have 11 children." And I'm thinking, well,
She didn't choose to have them alone at this point.
not my choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just happens. But
Yeah.
I think my mother made it work. I mean, what
Yeah.
do you
Well,
do?
obviously. Yeah.
She just buckled down and we all made it work.
I'm sorry that happened. I understand. Mine wasn't as
Traumatic?
quick. No, it
Or-
was pretty freaking traumatic.
oh.
But it was not. Yeah, I didn't mean that anyway. But I just mean it was cancer for 4 years.
So it was a
it's
slow
2 years of breast cancer, and then that remission, and then 2 years of lung cancer. But she told me, and I mean it sucked to hear it. But we had a frank conversation one time, and I was about 11, and she said, "This will kill me. Like I will not
Oh,
survive.
wow.
It's terminal."
Oh,
And
okay.
I had to. That was a bitter pill to swallow. I'm really glad she did tell me that, though. You can never know how it's going to be different, but it was one of those things where I can't help but think
it may be, it would it be better to have all these good times and no suffering leading up to it, or is it better to know it's coming with some losing somebody else? For
Well,
me personally, that's a different question. But losing somebody else, there, I guess what I'm
I didn't
more
get to
thinking
say
about what's
goodbye.
better exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas, I guess I didn't, but I kind of did. I got to tell her how much I loved her. We got to have the serious talks, so it's tough. But
Right.
I am happy that she was very straight with me, and she told me, it could be a year, could be 10 years, and it was something like 2.
Well,
But
the way I look at it is all 11 of us, even though we were, it was touch and go there for a while.
mhm.
All 11 of us have actually college degrees,
Oh wow,
which
that says
for
a
a family
lot
of 11,
about
it really says a
your
lot.
mother for
I've
sure.
got one sister that is a doctorate
Yeah.
in her degree. She's actually in education and she just retired.
Really?
I have well, my oldest sister Ann. She had her master's degree and she ran her own interior design company for years. Then I had a sister that had her doctorate in education and she taught there for a long time. The next one was actually in business management. She had her master's. My next brother was a research engineer for Caterpillar, and
Really?
he retired out just up in Peoria for a while. Then I have 2 brothers that have associates, and they're now farming well over 2 to 3,000 acres right now.
Uh-huh.
And then my brother that's closest to me in age, he's actually has his master's, and he flies the international flights for Delta. So if you hear,
Really?
so he flies the friendly skies,
Yeah.
across the ocean, and that's
Yeah.
just his job, commuting back and forth, And then my next sister she's got her bachelor's, and she does her business management. She's doing in management now, and so on and so forth. I have
Yeah.
a sister that teaches math, and she's got her master's in teaching math. So
Uh-huh.
she's pretty hardcore in math, and I don't know anything about math myself because
Yeah.
I'm an art.
Yeah.
And then my youngest
Me
sister,
neither.
she's everyone tries to get in with her, but she's the up in Taco Tierra. There's another company that they have, so it's Taco Tierra is the wholesale company. So
Uh-huh.
she's in the office, so
Oh.
she's like second, right
Uh-huh.
underneath the main manager
Uh-huh.
of the whole Taco Tierra franchise and
Yeah.
everything. She's been there for quite some time. I even
Mhm.
made a little jar and put their logo on the side and put a taco on top and everything for her birthday one time.
That's really sweet. Well, that is awesome. That says a lot about your family. It says a lot about your mother too. Yeah, single parents can be, obviously it depends on who you get, but it sounds like we were both pretty lucky. My dad is the best man I've ever known
Oh yeah.
in my life, and he kept going. He just kept going through, and
Well,
that's
what are you gonna do?
it's true. Well, tell you what some people do. We've seen it.
Break down,
We've
just
seen it.
lose it,
They
right?
just they fade away, or they don't. And so I have a lot of respect for single parents and the plight of that in general, but any parents really. I mean, we both know how you don't have 10 kids, but
No, but my mother lived 46 years after my father
that's
passed
crazy.
away.
We
46
did
more
talk
years.
about this. I remember
Yeah.
talking to you about this
Yeah.
before, and
I mean,
it just spaced on it because
yeah,
I never
my
remember
grandmother.
anything.
Yeah, my grandmother's. My grandfather passed away when the kids were some of the kids were still at home,
Yeah.
and she lived for another 36 years
Wow,
after
whole
my
other life.
grandfather passed away.
Well, longer than
Yeah.
for her anyway, longer than I've lived so far in my life, and she lived that separately with on her own and never remarried, huh?
No, because she said she was too busy.
Well,
I think so
I
too.
wonder whose fault
We would
that
always
is,
just.
Sue.
Hey, don't look at me. There were several. There
Oh,
were
I'm
6 more
sure.
below
That's
me,
right.
so or 5 more below me. Yeah, yeah. I mean, just staying busy because
Yeah.
once the younger ones were actually coming through, then the grandkids came in, and then she became a babysitter. And
Yeah.
I mean, because a lot of us,
Right, yeah, you're having grandbabies by the time the last one, probably before
Right.
the last one is heading out of the
not
house.
necessarily, because we all were driven to be in education.
Mhm.
We all got married,
Mhm.
not when we were like 18 or 20.
Right.
We were all late 20s, sometimes early 30s,
Mhm.
and then so our children themselves are older.
Mhm.
So they're not really young. I mean, not older. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We married later and had
Right.
children later on
Right.
in life, so they're they're
Mhm.
still not that much. But
Because they're professionally driven.
there's only a 7-year difference
Mhm.
between the first grandchild and the youngest of my siblings.
Hmm.
So 7 years,
Yeah.
maybe 7 or 5. I can't remember now, but not too close, but yet close enough.
Mhm.
But I think that's what's really interesting is the drive of all of the grandkids. I've got like 3 of them that can actually fly their own plane. One owns his own plane. 5 engineers, one's an IT, occupational therapist. I mean, one's managing a restaurant out in Denver, Colorado. I mean, they're all across the board, and they just do quite a lot of different, really interesting things as far as, their all careers. Because I think as far as just, we keep saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I wouldn't say push, but we really want to encourage our children, just like we do here in school. We're trying to encourage you to be a better part of yourself, be the best you can be, if you will.
Yeah. Well, that is really interesting, and definitely, like I said, a testament to your family and to your mother for going through that. So, but you didn't start an education. You got a degree in I remember
visual
arts.
Visual communications.
Yeah.
It's really it was a layman's term for graphic design. Yeah, I loved Carbondale. I encourage anybody. Carbondale was my alma mater. Actually, I had gotten a 2-year degree. I had gotten a 2-year scholarship from Wabash Valley College. I loved it up there, and it was just an art and everything. And I just got a job afterwards. And then my sister-in-law goes, "What are you going to do?" And I go, "Well, I don't know." And she goes, "Hey, go up to Eastern. That's my alma mater." I went up there 1 year at Eastern, and it just wasn't a good fit for me. And I thought, oh, I do not like it up here. But I think also the fact that I had a roommate I just didn't mesh well with. She was up from Chicago, and she just thought we were all country bumpkins down here. So I was like, okay. But the fact that there was a blizzard there, and I couldn't get to my car for 3 weeks, and you're walking around on a campus with sub-zero weather for that time, and it's just not enjoyable. And so I had a girlfriend that, I went back home one weekend, and I was talking to her, and I said, I'm just done. I just don't like college. And then she goes, well, come down to Carbondale and visit me for the weekend. Yeah. I fell in love with it and actually signed up that weekend. I loved it so much. It was such a difference, because you have to know whether or not that university is a good fit for you. Yeah. Not all universities have that same vibe. For sure. Especially in the art field, because, going into graphic design, I was up there in business management, and I just was doing accounting, and it was just really boring work, and it didn't feel like it was for me. So then whenever I transferred down, I actually changed my major. And so I started loving going to school and enjoying and actually waking up and saying, ooh, I get to go to class today, as opposed to, oh, God, I got to get out of bed. And I know a lot of people have that burnout where they just don't want to get up and don't have that, they're just initiative.
I took too long to get through school. I just screwed around too much and finally went back. And I was 30 when I started teaching, but unlike you, I didn't have another career. I worked at Denny's, and I just,
I was married for years and had 2 children and everything else before I started teaching. But I went to, so I graduated down there from Carbondale, and I just really enjoyed Carbondale. I wanted to actually stay down there. I actually interviewed for a job. I really love that area. Oh, Giant City State Park.
I was going to say, there's so many natural
Garden of the
Gods.
To we would, every weekend, me and my buddies and our friends, we would just say, okay, where we want to go. We had a big map of the Shawnee National Forest, and we would pick like Pyramid State Park, Shawnee, Garden of the Gods. I remember one time we stayed up all night and went down to Bald Knob, and Bald Knob has this huge church on the middle of this massive cross on the middle of that hill. And we had Easter sunrise services just sitting out there, and we were like one of the first ones there.
Yeah, it's a pretty popular place.
Everybody else had actually slept the night before. We had stayed awake, but it was just so cool, because you don't really see that up here. I mean, just
there's not a lot.
The landscape is so different than here, because this is just so flat.
The icebergs came through and just
and then went away. One of the big
ice sheets or whatever
just like broke off here, and then it
flattened everything out around here. And, that's my understanding. I wasn't there or anything. But,
are you sure about that? No, I might have been, because I'm older than you. But I mean, it's just a beautiful place, and I always said that Carbondale was a great place for somebody that's dead broke whenever you're a college student, because there's so many things you can do free. Yep. Like Garden of the Gods or Giant City State Park. You can go down there and you can go hiking. You got Fat Man Squeeze. You can rent equipment from the
library,
rec center.
Or the rec center.
The rec center. So you can go rappelling off of there. You can go kayaking. There's a lot of those lakes that are around there. And so there's
a lot of free shows to go to around there too. I assume they're still doing again.
From what I understand, but there's even a lake right there on campus, so you can just rent a
That's true.
canoe
Yeah,
and
Campus
you can
Lake's
just
great.
paddle around. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's what was so enjoyable. Me and my
Yeah.
friends, that we would just like figure out what to do, and we'd just be out there doing it and hanging out and just
Mhm.
having a good old time. And the camaraderie between the group of students within your program is really what makes it a lot of fun as well. It's almost like an non-art club
I didn't get that until I got into my master's, the Master's of Arts in Teaching, because the poetry and creative writing groups, maybe it was a little competitive. Maybe I didn't just, there was a few that I got along with, but no deep connections with anybody from that program really. And also I had one of my, and this is a thing that I would advise young people to try to avoid happening to you. SIU, it definitely, I liked the college. There were things about it that I wanted to do. I didn't know
Carbondale
exactly
or
what. Yeah,
Edwardsville?
Carbondale.
Okay.
Yeah, I went there too. I graduated from there. I got my master's and my bachelor's there. Excuse me. But all my friends moved down around the same time within about a year or so. And so I had a big group of friends just transplanted from Olney down to there.
Oh.
And so we all just had people to hang out with already. And it didn't, my wife and I were
So you didn't get
just
to meet
dating,
new
but
people as much.
I didn't meet that many new people. I didn't need social things. And I didn't, as a matter of fact, I had so much time to hang out with, or so much time spent hanging out with my buddies that I didn't, take advantage of as much as I could. And I regret that. In my master's, we had a tight cohort of 13 people that I don't keep up with, other than just because I don't do social media very much, like at all. But I will go through every once in a while. I'll look and just see where people are at, just
Right.
see like, oh,
And
it's
I've
this
done that
person,
too.
and it's kind of creeping on them, I guess. But I'm not like deep diving on everybody's life. Just like, oh, I'll see what's on the feed right now. Oh, Jennifer Lemons' kid is, graduated. This is a few years back. Hi, Jennifer.
I've caught up on
There's
quite
really
a lot of them
nice-
through social
yeah.
media, and in fact,
I'm just so bad
reconnected-
at keeping in touch with
Oh,
people. I'm
Trust me, I am
terrible
too.
at it.
Well, you're just so busy in your own life, and so are they.
I think I also, like not to go back to it, but I think losing my mom really young made me a little weird about relationships and not pruning them away. But I get, especially when it's been a while, there's something about me that's so afraid of losing people. It's common. People do this all the time. But I distance myself
form that close
a lot.
bond and stay in touch with them.
Yeah, and when I haven't been around somebody in a while, maybe there's something. I think I'm also just lazy. I mean, that's
But you can't. Hold on. Got a time. One of my many timers going off. I always have a timer.
Yeah.
Well, when you're an art teacher, you always have to have a timer a timer to go off before the bell rings so that you have enough time to clean up.
Oh,
so
right,
that's
sure,
what that is.
yeah.
And
makes
then I have
sense.
reminders this time of the night too.
Gotta do stuff, yeah.
But yeah, college to me was
emails and stuff all the time
really a
like that.
good connection because through the use of social media, I had not even been able to reach out to some of them. I mean, a lot of my friends were actually from the Chicago area. And I just reconnected with one of my good friends that we were there. And our names were both Sue, and I thought it was so funny is we went out, and as of course, in college, your Halloween parties were really a lot of fun when you dressed up, especially in Carbondale and everything.
Carbondale was wild.
She was 6'1". Think Danielle Brown, okay? And then of course I'm short, and she was wearing. And we planned to meet up, and we were going to dress like, I can't remember what we were dressing like, but she wore heels and I wore flats, which made us extra tall and short. But I just reconnected with her last year, and it was just wonderful to hear about her life and what's happening and everything. And it's like, wow. And even the high school students that I have have not really had much to do with. I mean, I haven't even gone to all my reunions, sad to say, but it's just I'm busier. I didn't feel inspired to go. And I just made a connection with several of my girlfriends in high school, and it's really amazing that what's going on in their lives isn't much different than what I'm doing. And it's amazing as how close they're all living, and we haven't even been talking or really talking. I know one's just down on Elliott Street, which is like, wow.
Yeah, you're just stone's throw.
Yeah, and I didn't
every day
even
at
know she
work
was living
anyway.
up here for the longest time. So we just reconnected, and then we all went to listen to Carla sing karaoke with her husband. Had a good time of it the other night.
Awesome. So you, SIU, finished there. How did you end up at Whirlpool, and what were you doing there?
Actually,
It's a corporate office, right? Not like it wasn't a dealership or anything.
No.
Like a
Whirlpool
Sears,
Corporation.
but,
Yes, I was at the corporation.
office. Was this a
60,000
graphic
employees.
design, or was this more office
What it is
stuff?
I graduated Carbondale with a graphic design degree. So it's the commercial art side of it. So I was doing commercial art.
Cool.
And so I said, what do I want to be whenever I grow up? So I actually just headed off. I had a girlfriend. I was interviewing like in Owensboro, Indiana. I interviewed up by Peoria. I was
Just different
interviewing a lot of
corporations to do.
Evansville, quite a lot of areas around here because I'm from Mount Carmel. So I was just going to, think. I had a girlfriend call me up and said, hey, what are you doing? And I go, oh, I just got done from an interview. And she goes, no. I mean, have you found a job yet? And I said, no. She goes, well, I'm moving over to the St. Louis area. You want to go? And about 30 seconds, yeah, sure, when, where? Literally had no future. I went over there with her, and I started working over there as a graphic designer, got right in, because bigger cities, you can always find a job in graphic design and working. I worked for a printing company.
I would say could anyway. I think the jobs are harder to find. There's just so many people in it nowadays.
Because of the computer.
And the AI thing is really busting that.
Right. I mean, the computers, everybody thinks they're their own, just like the digital photography. Everybody thinks of their own photographer. Everybody carries a camera with them all the time, whereas before you had to have film and all that stuff. And so I was over there working as a graphic designer and everything. And the irony is I reconnected with an old boyfriend of mine here in Mount Carmel, and we got engaged.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, this is great. And he goes, well, you're going to have to move back home. I'm not moving over there because he had a better job and blah, blah, blah. So I gave up the big city life of sort of, like Green Acres style. I headed over to the country. And that lasted all of about 6 months.
No. Yeah.
It just
grass was not greener.
We had dated off and on for 5 years, and then at the end of it, it's like, well, this isn't.
Yeah, there's a reason it was off and on for 5
years.
Yes,
there's a reason why it's off and on. And so then I was back over here, but at that time I'd already gotten a job at Whirlpool, and I was just working assembly at Whirlpool. And I'm like, okay, then because they were opening up a new assembly line and everything, because this is where Whirlpool Corporation was, right south of the airport in Evansville, Indiana, and that was the home of the P-47 bombers, because that's what the building was built for. They actually made the airplanes for the World War II. That's what the building was built. And you could see still remnants of how the building was built in relationship to the airplane, because you started at the south end of the building where it was metal forming and the presses and everything, making the big sides. Same way with the refrigerators. And then as the assembly line went to the north, you made the refrigerator, well, before it was the airplane. At the end of it, they would just open the big doors and then fly out.
Fly them out, yeah.
Because crazy. That was the end of the runway. Yeah. That's why that runway
That's crazy.
is right there by 41, because it was coming right out of the building.
They're going to ship them off on the assembly
they would just
line.
Fly. They would have their test pilots actually taxi them onto that runway and fly out and do test drives and test flights, and then they would be off to the war or wherever.
So what are some of the things you did on the line for the washing machine?
I was actually shooting screws. I would sit there and shoot screw, and I could read.
What was it? I'm just curious.
I was
I've done
shooting
this
screws
before
for the separator.
It
was putting a plastic part onto the separator, which is the piece of I forgot the official name for it, but it was the piece that separates a refrigerator from the freezer, that section. Yeah. And I was shooting these screws, and I would sit there. These would have been
like metal then at that point?
No, it's plastic and metal plate, and then they're formed with an insulation properties, and then they have all the wires and everything. So I'd put all the wires down, and I would shoot the screw.
You're even underneath everything.
Yeah, well, that was where the light system and all the electrical goes in, and I would shoot screws, and I could read the newspaper, the Evansville Courier, which is pretty thick, from front to back, and shoot those screws all day long. And I was so bored, because I'm like, this is, because it's a mind numbing. It's over and over. I would do all the crossword puzzles. I would do that big, huge puzzle every night, and I could get it all done. And then I'm like, I want something more. This is not working.
I lasted 3 months at Orion.
I was there about 6 months.
TV in boxes.
And then they said, well, hey, what about, we need technicians, and because we're going to expand a little bit more, we need technicians, and we need this and we need that, but we're also going to have training programs in-house. So where they had these conference rooms, and I signed up for one, and I go, oh, I love this. I love training. And this was adult training, because I would be trained. We would pull people off the assembly line, and then the people that would cover for me, well, because they always have people to cover, they'd go, how in the world do you do that? Because they couldn't even keep up shooting the screws, let alone read the newspaper.
When you do it for long enough, though, it's just second nature.
Actually, I was a little bit faster than the average bear, and they still, even the people that could be there couldn't get the rhythm of reading the newspaper and doing all that. And so it's just something you get used to.
I can't
Well, my
I need at least a
dexterity-
few minutes at a time to read something. I can't. It's the focus part. Like dexterity, I'm okay with, but I need to focus on a text or I get lost so easily. I'll reread the same paragraph over and over again.
I think one of the things that I used to do is I used to work for a sewing machine, Johnny Manufacturing, over in Albion, Illinois, and one of the things we would sew, and your speed was really what got you. And it's just that dexterity within the manufacturing that really helped me out. But I just know that whenever I really started enjoying the training much more than I did the online assembly, so then I started applying for other jobs to where I could do more training and actually become a teacher. So I was a corporate trainer. They sent me down to Mexico, Monterrey, Mexico, to where I had an assistant. And so whenever I was training these people that spoke only nothing but Spanish, nobody spoke Spanish except my interpreter. So I would be talking like this, and then I would have to pause, and then he would say what I was saying, in Spanish, and then I would keep on going. But I was the one training the program, you know, and I really started enjoying that. I thought, wow, this is something I really not. And always in the back of my head, I always kept doing that, but I was becoming more and more this trainer. In fact, some of the training programs, I was actually wrote manuals on how to write programs because they were developing computer programs on the position that I had. And so I was actually writing the manuals in order to teach other people on how to do this up at the corporate office. And so they sent me to different places to do that, which I just so much love. So you were more or less writing rubrics like we do today and writing the whole program, and then you were teaching it. So it was almost prepping myself to be an actual teacher.
For sure, yeah. I mean, it's very similar. It's what a lot of it is.
And then when a position came open to where it was called a first parts approval coordinator, so I was actually working in a department in quality control to where any product or any part that was needing to be put into the assembly, into the assembly had to go through me, more or less, because I was a department of one. I had other people. I would have to determine whether or not it needed to be, whether or not it actually needed to have any type of testing on it, whether the metrics or like the durometer of the rubber, like how soft and spongy the rubber was, or how the tensile strength of the metal, or the thickness of the metal, or the coatings and everything. And since I was working so much with the engineers and learning how to read their technical quotes, I always say I could read engineerese, but I didn't get the paycheck, but I really enjoyed that. In fact, I was thinking about that just the other day. I still made more in 2007 than I do even today because of, I was working around people that had 27 U.S. patents to their names. But of course, if you're working with the company retains a patent, not necessarily you. But I really enjoyed it. And then Whirlpool said, hey, we're adios, we're out of here, and we're shutting down. What do you want to be now? And we had retraining opportunities, with the state. So I'm like, okay, what do I want to be when I grow up now? I thought, well, heck, I like this corporate training. I like the teaching. So I wanted to be teaching. And at the time, I said, I want to be home with my kids during the summer. And to me,
it's a benefit.
It's
a
is
huge
a benefit.
I love it.
Huge. And
I love
really
it. I
now,
got a senior next year, and I am so lucky to have gotten to see him for 5 minutes every day over the summer before he leaves to go out with his friends. It's one of the luckiest things that's ever happened to me.
I know.
It's great. It's great to be around your kids. You get that extra time. I never, because I worked at, like I said before, Denny's for so long, work every weekend, every holiday they make you work. And I definitely know you got to work, you got to get by.
You can go to the 4-H
but the fact
fair.
that now I can actually get holidays with my family, I can actually get some summertime, go on vacation with my family.
Not having to worry about coming back
I value
or
it
requesting.
so much. I value it so much. It's so lucky to be able to do.
We're big farmers, because I'm married to a farmer, and so every summer that would be your big season. But also you would have the fair. You would have to prep. You get ready, your animals ready for the fair. You'd have to be there every day for all the judging.
Yeah,
and
it definitely helps with farming and stuff.
Any farmer, like if you're in farming and you're a teacher, because you have that time to get everything ready for the fair, and that's what I really enjoyed. I mean, I was going up to the state fair. I was, a lot of those other activities. Whereas whenever I was working in Whirlpool, wasn't able to do, or I could, but I'd have to take off work and I'd have to make sure get approval for your vacations, because my job was so unique and technical. I couldn't sometimes take off because there would only be one or two people that could replace me, but I couldn't be off at the same time they were.
Right.
So those are the problems,
Yeah.
you know, with something that's so technical like that whenever
Yeah.
you're working with, you know, engineers in their groups.
So going into teaching from that background, because you spent about 20 years, did you say, at
Yes.
Whirlpool? That's crazy too. To
Right.
go to a career shift at
Showing
that point.
my age.
2 years? 2 years,
Yeah,
you said, young lady?
yeah.
But so shifting into teaching, how do you feel, you know, like what helped, what didn't help with that? I mean, there has to be some more insight. Like I definitely had a little different insight than 22-year-old, like Mr. Brown's here, and he's pretty straight out of college. So
Right.
he's definitely got the advantage of he's had a more recent education. He's still kind of has an idea of what it's like for the current kids and what they're doing. You know, so there's benefits and drawbacks of every situation. And me, I turned 30 my first month in the classroom, and I had just regular life experience, not even corporate. It was just Denny's and, you know, a lot of school and
No,
like other
teaching some
places
class
I
in
worked.
Mexico
Walmart.
where
I got
you
into
didn't know the
management
language.
and I got into management in Walmart for a little while, but
I
it
was a manager
not
at
for
Walmart
me,
as well.
Not for me.
Whenever I moved over there,
Um,
yeah.
So what do you think it gave you? What were the benefits or detractions of going from corporate,
It was
privatized stuff to the public education sphere?
what it gave me is that relationship that actually any education, whether it be in the visual arts field or in the band or any field within the high school, you know, all the programs that we have here at the high school, it gave me that realization that there is such a link, you know, out,
Mhm.
you know, whenever you do get out of school, you know, in the private sector. I mean, it's amazing how much art and art concepts you apply out there in the
Mhm.
in the world. It's just like in English. One of the things that, you know, like on my downtime, I was always reading books and always
Mhm.
reading novels. But in the corporate world, you have to know your English because you have to write these letters and they have to be more formal.
Yeah.
They can't be, hey, dude, you know, what's up
Yeah.
with that?
And you can't sound like an idiot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, you can. That's true because
Yeah.
the idiots don't get promoted.
No,
You
they
know,
do
they
not.
stay down low as a peon.
I'm sure
So
some of them
whenever
do,
you're
but
writing when you're writing letters, they have to be very formal. They
yeah.
have to. I mean, of course, now we have Grammarly, but Grammarly
Yeah.
doesn't help you with all of that. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
an app. It can't really relate to what it is. I know AI seems to be taking over a lot of those things, but
Yeah,
you,
but a dum-dum with AI is just a person who puts stuff out there that everybody's like, AI did this. You know, it's
yes,
like,
yes,
yeah, I definitely agree. Like, you've got to know, there's all sorts of great tools that make intelligent people's lives easier and that make dumb people really
look,
show their face. You know, like,
yes, right,
that if you don't understand what it is you're asking, like somebody tries to go into coding, it's like, I'm not even going to learn about coding. I'm just going to ask this AI to do it all the time.
right.
You can't check your work on that. Your code falls apart. Same thing with a business letter. It's like you don't know the tone of super profesh to like
Right.
more familiar and then more like asking a favor. You've
Right.
just got to know what you're looking for and what you're asking people. You get more of a feel of interpersonal relationships, I think, too, through
Well, yes,
education.
because I know that whenever I was working there, I was working with other, I had over 200 vendors that would come to me direct, and these were sales reps for the vendors, or even the president of the company would come to me and say, hey, what's this? You know, we need this widget to get onto the assembly line
Yeah.
because it's a part that goes maybe on the handle or in the compressor or anything.
Yeah.
And I would be working with these people that have been spent a long time, I mean, their entire careers, you know, and you have to have that sense of professionalism, no matter if you are the lowest of the low in the classroom or you're very high, you know, and it really makes a big difference. But that integration, you know, of your basics. I mean, we had to know math just like that. A lot of
Yeah.
people go, "Oh, I'll just use my phone." No, you don't. You have to have it in your head
By the time you're getting your app open. Yeah.
right.
Boop.
But you need to have that
Where is it again?
already
What
because
folder was it in?
it's amazing how much right off the top of your head you have to do, and then there's that formality of just, you know, your business etiquette. You know that a lot of businessmen will not favor you if you are not using proper business etiquette.
Mhm.
You know, and I've seen a lot of people
Yeah.
show themselves,
Yeah.
and they just didn't last very long at the company because they were just not really doing well with that. But I just feel that that's what we're here for high school. You know, we are here to teach students how to become good quality citizens,
Mhm.
you know, to be productive citizens of our society. Not just good quality citizens, but
Yeah.
productive
Yeah.
citizens. I mean, I don't expect all of my students to, you know, be out there, be a rocket scientist,
Yeah.
but I don't.
What
I
do we
hope
want
they're not.
everybody to be, you know?
Right, but I don't. I hope that not everybody's just going to go home in a dad's or mom's basement and live down there
Right.
for the next 20 years
Yeah.
either.
Have some skills that actually help push civilization forward. I mean, it's all we're doing on this
Right.
rock, is we're just
Right.
trying to eke out a survivable living that also has some fun, entertaining stuff, some art that's beautiful to look at,
Right.
from interesting people's point of view that learn how to do this stuff, but also we're just keeping the wheels moving because that's what we do, and you can't do that without people that don't understand how the machine works in a way. And I know it sounds, I think that's coming off sounding cold in a way of like,
not necessarily.
That's life. We go along and then we die and another cog replaces you, but it gives you some comfort too. I don't want the world to fall apart when I'm gone, and I want to have a purpose. I want to have a place in
People
society.
need to have that purpose.
It's a living organism, the human race is in this massive way, and becoming a useful part of that gives you fulfillment. And I think it's something people that haven't found that yet don't quite know.
Right.
Maybe they don't even believe it's there or something. But if they, having a sense of purpose for yourself and for a community, or just for whatever community
for
that
your
you
family,
choose, or your
just
family,
for your family,
or a group of friends that are your family, or just for yourself, so you can get a nice place and have some good relaxing time under a tree outside somewhere, or doing whatever you want to do. Like there's just that is important, and it's great. And the fact that I am a cog in a machine sometimes, I'm irreplaceable in some people's lives, but I don't want to be irreplaceable here. I want the drama program to go on. I want video programs to go on.
I want the art
even though
department
that's
to
harder
expand.
to do. Absolutely.
And I think it'd be great because I only have one viewpoint. I would love to hear all these other different viewpoints, because art, like like English, like creative writing, if you will, is subjective. I mean, what makes it interesting to me may not be interesting to you in a novel. I mean, to me, I'm not into horror movies.
I'm a big sci-fi nerd for novels and movies too. Horror movies, I love horror movies, but it just depends.
See, I'm not a horror movie
But I
fan.
get that people don't. I'm such
I figure
a snob.
real life
about
is
stuff.
scary enough for me sometimes.
Well, see, I like action too, but it's like I love a good action thriller.
I love a good thriller.
You gotta go see Fall Guy. It's so good. But I love that. Oh God, it's so good.
I mean, like
it's the movie called The Fall Guy. It's Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's made off the old TV show from the 70s.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
With oh God, what's his name? He makes an appearance in it too. $6 Million Man.
Lee Majors.
Is that $6 Million Man? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Majors.
too. Yeah. Lee Majors is in.
He's still around. I didn't even know.
Yeah, he makes a cameo in the end. He's great.
And then
he's
Heather
in it earlier too.
Heather Locklear was in it?
Emily Blunt is in the film. Oh, the original show? I can't remember.
I think so. I think
I saw a little bit of it. Yeah. Cool.
Oh,
I just love that movie. You said Adventure. I was so mad that it didn't just tear it up at the box office. Fantastic film. 10 out of 10. Love it. But I love that, but I don't myself want to have to deal with people shooting at me and trying to jump off a building. So that's what I love about art, is stuff that is like I love violent action movies.
So do I.
I don't ever want to see it in real life though.
No,
I have no love of. I don't ever want to get in a
fight.
That's
why I come to Alney.
I don't have dreams of being a hero. And yeah, exactly.
I mean, I lived in St. Louis where there were like drive-bys and literally quite a lot of violence. I mean, it's a big city and there were a lot of things going on in there.
But it's not you desire that.
No.
I love a good they just knocked the bad guy out or shot him or whatever. That guy had it coming. But in real life, I don't want that to happen. Now, don't come at me.
Well, I mean,
because I will take you out.
Where I was living was considered a fairly safe area of town. It was working class town. I had my car, I've had my car broken into. I had my bicycle stolen. Anything that was outside, it was gone. You always had to lock up everything. You walk away from your car, it was locked when you were 2 feet away. Every single time. And you never left anything out. It was just the way you had to live over there. There's something about
Olney that I love, and I was trying to get across. I was thinking about it, and I was driving down one of the east-west streets.
When you go south on north and then east on south on east. I got really confused the first year I was here whenever they were telling me, how do I get to Dallas? Well, you go south on East Street, and then you go east on North, and then you go... I'm like, huh?
Hey, wait, what? I was just driving through town, and I was just having this really weird thought train about how, like without it sounding wrong, like it's just Olney. It's so comforting in a way, like because it gets rid of some pretension. Like, it's just Olney, man. You can calm down a little bit. Like, yeah, we do great things with art. I think for small communities, we have so many things that go on with
Yes,
art.
you do. The
All
Olney
these
Arts
different,
Council
like the Arts
is
Council does a
wonderful.
lot
It's
of
a great
stuff.
support system.
I'm on it. I'm not exactly the most productive member, but I think we do great stuff. But we have our fall festival. I mean, Olney
A lot
in
of
general.
events happening. There's a
all
lot of
sorts of
crafts
people are
fairs
into
and stuff.
art and stuff like that. We have a lot of.
We have
now
Bob
that,
Treese. He's a professional artist here
he's
from
amazing,
here. I mean,
yeah.
I've got one of his pieces too.
Now that I'm jealous. Now that my wife sells stained glass stuff, I just see all these vendor events, and I'm like, wow, there is a lot here. But if somebody starts getting too much, like we've got to, this isn't classy enough or something. I'm trying to think without thinking of some real examples.
Like
of things I run into, but
creating art of a 2-liter plastic bottle or something and making a windmill out. Yeah.
Well, I
get that.
Not even that though. I just mean if somebody gets really like critical about something, like, well, that's just not proper. I'm just like, it's Olney. There's a comforting fact in just saying it's Olney.
This is Olney.
Or somebody starts talking about like, I've got to
even like kitsch
take
art.
care of myself and my family, and it's like, dude, just chill. It's Olney, okay?
Right.
Calm it. Yeah, we're gonna protect your family, but also you're not exactly in a war zone here. There's something I got on this like thought process of like, it's just Olney is such a great thing. Like I would like to put it on a postcard or a poster, but I think it would come across as condescending when it's like, no, it's what I love about this place.
Actually, I had interviewed here in 2010, and I was so wanting the job because I go, I just want to live work in Olney because I enjoyed this community. I mean, to me, people that live here say, what? I want to get out. But I mean, really.
I get it for kids, for young people,
There's
especially when you still live at home. It's different because like now we
you
both
go out, see the
have
world,
the means that
then you
we
come
can
back
go
home.
wherever we want to and come back. I don't have the energy of a young person anymore.
No,
but
the nightlife is
get
not
to
for me.
go,
The noise,
and
the constant
the simplicity
lights.
becomes, especially when you're younger, you're still trying to figure out what do I want to do. I got to meet people, it's definitely hard to meet people around here that aren't related to you.
Hey, that sounds like Mount Carmel. I mean, yes, I've been working over at Sisney. It's like,
I get it for kids. I get it for young people. But
I
feel like for people in our like age range, and people with families and especially school age kids, this is just such a great. It's not too simple, but it's not too pretentious and high strung.
Hey, you got a Walmart. Mount Carmel doesn't even have Walmart, so that's a good thing.
Just bring us a movie theater, please. Just get us a movie theater here.
Well,
God,
in Mount Carmel, you
please.
go over to Princeton.
Brendan agrees over here, shaking his head. Oh, I know. Okay, like I used to say this all the time. There was even some study like that somebody did, like would it be viable, and it was. And then I was for years I would say, and then COVID hit. It's like, oh, good thing they didn't open one in the last couple of years. But now we're back, baby. Bring me a movie theater into town. I'm tired of having an extra 2 hours of trip to go to Vincennes or Evansville or whatever. And oh God, give us a movie theater.
Very good movie theater.
Yeah. Well, the one
there's the one in Princeton. That's where Mount Carmel goes because
nice.
It's only 20 minutes from Mount Carmel, and Mount Carmel hasn't had one in a long time.
The Princeton one's pretty nice. The Vincennes one, I was just there twice, and it was okay. Seems like they've done it right.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there for like a 3-hour movie, I don't.
Oh, I can't stand their chairs. You're right. I hate their chairs, but I'm uncomfortable in every chair.
Is there one in Effingham?
There is. I haven't been there yet, though.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about Effingham. I haven't been up there. I mean, up to.
It's like a show place or something.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, you were talking about Olney as far as driving around east and north and all that stuff. Mount Carmel, do you know how Mount Carmel laid out their original town?
No.
Okay, you have Main Street, which is really officially called Market Street, and that's where all the markets, businesses were and everything. And on the north side of Main Street, running parallel to Main Street, are all the trees named after fruit trees. So it's mulberry and cherry and pear and plum and, and all those peach trees. Then on the south side, running parallel to the Main Street, there are trees named after nuts. So you have chestnut, walnut, pecan, oak, and all these nut trees. And then from the river, because it's a bluff city, you have First going all the way out to 13th Street. So it's an easy way to figure out where you're at based on whether or not you're looking for a nut or a fruit. So that was the joke, if you're a nut or a fruit, on there. And so that was a funny way to remember it, but it's an easy way to remember how to find your way around the original part of Mount Carmel.
Interesting.
And I always thought that was joking, but
That's funny.
I had to put that one in because I always like that little trivia part. You have white squirrels. We didn't.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I like the white squirrel kitschy stuff. I'm on record for saying that, but I get why it gets a little old to some people.
I do.
Yeah.
But the only thing that really, whenever I came up here, Mr. Jones and I were having a conversation. I'll give credit to Mr. Jones because he actually said it out loud. I think he said it to Mr. Simpson. He goes, "Why isn't our football team the White Squirrels?"
Yeah, I've heard him say this several times.
And it would
Many
make
people
sense.
say it. It does. I mean, good luck trying to change it at this point.
No, I don't
You're gonna
think
have
so.
people storming your house if you start talking about this. These views are only of Sue Pickles Pixley.
No, Mr. Jones, Mr. Jones.
Oh, Mr. Jones, then fine, as long as it's
But
not
I
me. Don't come at
agreed
me.
with.
Don't
I
come
was
at
sort
me.
of curious as far as why, but
I definitely had that thought too when I moved here when I was younger. Yeah.
But I mean, I know Mount Carmel. I always talk about Mount Carmel because Mount Carmel, I grew up there. In fact, my uncle is living in one of the houses. It's like one of the oldest houses that's still retained in the same family because it was built in 1861, and it's still the same family still living in the same house.
That's crazy.
And so, my family roots run deep there, and also up in Effingham or Teotopolis. Actually, my mother's from there. But it's just so funny as far as we're the Aces, and you know how that was there as a reporter because he was saying how the basketball team in the 1920s they didn't really have a name for it yet, and so they were talking about the basketball team how they were winning. He goes, having these 5 players on the team is like having 5 aces in your hand of poker, and therefore that's where the name stuck.
I should figure out in this podcast where the Tiger's name started and came from.
Yeah, because I was curious myself. I'm like, we're not in somebody's sanctuary. Or
Clay Wheeler is one who I have put off putting him on.
He's a historian.
Because he absolutely, and he's also.
You got to get him before he leaves.
For sure. No, I plan.
Is this his last year?
No. He just put in for retirement, I believe.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But the only reason I didn't use him last year is because he's such an obvious choice, and I didn't want to burn it right away. And
right.
I know. So I've tried to think of a regular segment or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to do a regular. So Clay, we need to.
Is he born and raised here? I don't even know.
I don't know. I guess I'll ask him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll ask him when I get him on.
There's a lot of people, of course, that have been born and raised here in Ollie.
Yeah.
But,
I was a transplant. But so as we get towards the end here, I just kind of wondered, you mentioned that to me before that you'd like to work on more cross-curricular projects. So what are some ideas for how that happens and how do you see that taking shape here at Richland County High School?
Art can be integrated almost in anything. I think one of the things, like for English, I had made this for one of the other schools I was at, where they were to write novels and then actually create a book and illustrate them. And I thought that would be so cool.
Yeah.
And I actually had a student here one of my first years here, and she actually was writing a book, and I think it was more of a children's book, but she created a series. I think it was 6 drawings based on the illustrations for that book that she was writing.
My class.
It could have been. But I thought that was so great.
I've had a couple turn in watercolors for their children's book project.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can say their name, but
no,
it was really a neat thing. Yeah. And I think that we can actually, if we start thinking about, like if we're looking at these students that are going to go out into this world, how can they integrate art into English, into, math, and using all these skills together, not just being so secular they are, like they are now, they're so secular. I think if we start integrating or create cross-curricular activities like such as that, like ag in the classroom. Well, we have ag here, but how can we get art into that? Maybe can we illustrate? I know that one of our
design will come into play in almost anything too, for sure.
Well, it's like one of our students, she was wanting to illustrate, make the mural down there for the science because she wants to be a medical illustrator.
Yeah.
I think that'd be wonderful because you're applying your sciences with your drawing skills.
And creativity.
And being creative.
It's also storytelling too, because a mural is about telling a story and giving an impression just as much as it's just art.
Right. And it can be creative as can be, but it's still that thing. And that's one thing I'd actually, whenever she came up with that idea, I said, I've got a better idea. Why don't we standardize the size at which she's making it? And then as other departments come along and as I have other students that are wanting to leave their legacy here at the high school, maybe they can draw like a little brief ad for each department. You have a little panel for each department. So like in your English or in your science or in your in your ag, you can put a little panel there. So,
Mhm.
and it's also a very visual. A lot of people are visual. I'm a visual learner. I mean, when you're telling me, oh, well, like to repair a car, to change the thing, I look at the drawings in those, instruction manuals for whatever, books are. Some people can read the words and instructions that way. I'm a visual learner, so I want the drawings, and I draw it out for other people whenever I'm explaining things. And a lot of people are the same way. So as you have freshmen coming in, it's easy for them to remember where their class is or where it is based on maybe that artwork
Images
that's
around
there.
the building.
And I just think that would be so interesting to have,
Exit,
here in the school.
Was it exit 5 with a bear on it is what Eva told me about picking. I was like, what are you talking about? And it was in elementary school. It was exit 5 and it had a bear. So they could find it. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. But
or color-coded, they'd
mhm.
have certain stripes for different things.
Yeah.
And I just think that if we were to be a little bit more creative here in the school, I think we could really make a lot. I mean, I love the VBB. I didn't know if you noticed what I did for the graduation. I gathered up all the photos that I'd had of all the artwork, and I got a list of all the seniors. And if I found their artwork in some of the photos, because I didn't think of this till after they'd already left, I made a slideshow for all the artists. And so it's nothing.
Did you email that out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just hadn't looked at it yet. Yeah.
I made a slideshow. So if it was, I was showcasing the senior, and then I took pictures of their artwork. And of course, a lot of the art was already out the door, so I didn't get a chance to take all their photos. But I tried to find. My phone has thousands and thousands of photos. I'm like a photoholic here. Yeah. And so I made a slideshow for
artwork pictures all the time of your students. It'll add up.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Trust me. My phone doesn't work that well because I'm over my limit on how many photos. Well, 68,000 photos in my phone. And most of it, 80% of it's art.
Art stuff.
Or recipes.
Or related,
some of the other things that I like to do is actually be creative in the kitchen. And I love to cook. And I don't like to clean up though, but I love to cook and I love to decorate and to make these monstrously scrumptious pies and then, and
so
cakes
you like
and
baking
stuff.
more then? Or,
I like more baking than I do cooking, but I just like add a dash here and add a dash there. The first time I make a recipe, I make it verbatim as it says. And I'm like, it needs a little bit of this. Or
it's hard to pull me away from that exact recipe. I'm getting better about it. My wife even was giving me crap about it. It's like, I know, I just feel it's like control or something. I don't know what it is.
Well, the very first time, I always like to make it exactly how the recipe says, because then if I like it, then I'm going to keep it. But if I want to add a little bit more lemon, I was making a blueberry pound cake, but that had a blueberry lemon pound cake the other day. And it was just so tender. It just like melted in your mouth. But I think it needed a little bit more of a spark. So I, chopped up some lemon rind and I added a little bit more of that tartness in there.
You can't get too much lemon for
Yes, not with the blueberries because they just burst of flavor in your mouth. And so I enjoy doing that stuff all the time and decorating. And my sister, one of my other sisters, before she was her college doctorate, she was actually one of those ladies that made your wedding cake. She had served up to 600. So I'd come over to her house and drop by at her house and I go, "What you doing?" She goes, "I need some help." Here. She'd hand me things. So I'd be decorating cakes or making her mince or something for the wedding. She would start on Wednesday because you have a cake for 600 people that has to be set up by noon on Saturday afternoon. You're decorating and baking for days to get that done. And so I got that little thing from her, that little spark of imagination to be decorating and everything. We didn't buy any cakes like that. Actually, my older three sisters all worked at the local bakery.
What we did on ours, I think we did a sheet cake or something silly. We didn't really care that much about it. We didn't need a lavish wedding, but that's story.
That was my sister's gift to me. She made my wedding cake, and they ran out, and she was so mad. And I go, "Yeah, but did you see some of the people whenever they were cutting them? They cut them so wide. They were cutting them like 3-inch wide because everybody was begging for her cake. So they ran out of cake by the time it was done. But
that's the problem of having a good cake.
I didn't even get to see much of the cake after I had actually did the formal pictures because it was everybody just wanted to talk to you. The bride's always busy that day anyway.
It's a hectic day.
It's who wants to go on a honeymoon? You actually need to rest.
Right, no kidding. Yeah, we still haven't. So just as a final note here, do you kind of have a thought or, and this is sort of, maybe this is throwing too much at somebody to expect a really quick, give me a couple seconds here on this extremely complicated topic, but teaching creativity versus teaching like skills. Like you can teach somebody how to hold a brush, but what are your thoughts about is it about unlocking creativity, or is it about actually teaching them, how to have a creative eye? What do you think about the idea or the concept of even being able to teach creativity?
Well, sometimes in some of the classes, whenever I first got into teaching, I was very technical. You've got to do exactly how I'm doing this, and then
Mm-hmm.
I would grade you on those skill sets as far as. Then I thought, saying, well, let's just take the skill sets, like
Mm-hmm.
creating a value range because you need, at least 5 value changes in there, and backing off on being so specific on there
Mm-hmm.
and letting that creativity burst forth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the minimum
Right.
that I want you to try. But, the
Mm-hmm.
sky's the limit on how creative you can
Yeah.
be. And so one of the things that we just did following up in our ceramics class was you did your standard issue. You did pottery on the wheel. You did a pottery wheel piece, and then you did a pinch pot, and those were pinch pot
Mm-hmm.
monsters or something with a lid. Then you did a slab, and we'd call them canopic jars. Like the ancient Egyptians would put the lung and the heart in
Mm-hmm.
those jars,
Yeah.
and preserve them and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And those are actually called canopic jars. And so
Okay.
we create a canopic jar that's a reflection of your personality, and you have to have something on the top and make it decorative and
Mm-hmm.
everything. Not you can make it look like the traditional canopic jar, or you can
Or you
make
can
it
make it
really anything
whatever
you want to.
works for you.
And then we do a coil. A lot of kids aren't really into coil; they just make a rope straight up. But the last one was make a fantasy creature,
Mm-hmm.
like a sculpture. And I say it's got to be as big as a Barbie doll,
Yeah.
and let it go. I know one of the students last year, she created a mermaid that just washed up on the beach, and the
Mm-hmm.
tail was flopping up, and she used marble to make it look like
I
there
can
was
remember that one.
glass water,
Mhm.
underneath the mermaid and
Yeah.
everything. And it was actually detachable from her base, so she had
Mhm.
rocks in the water, and then she would lay her mermaid on there. It's one of the best pieces I've
Yeah.
seen in quite a long time, and that's how I left it. And I
Mhm.
gave a list of about 30 different types of creatures to let them start thinking,
Mhm.
but I didn't have any restrictions as far as which one they could
Yeah.
use or which one they did. I mean, I've had Cerberus, the 3-headed
Uh-huh.
dog.
Yeah.
I've had a 3-headed goat. I've had a lot of those. A lot of them are coming from like your MCU.
Marvel Cinematic
Marvel,
Universe stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
Marvel
I'll bet
universe.
you get a fair amount of stuff from manga, the
Yes.
graphic, not the Japanese
A lot of them, whenever
anime
that's in the
stuff.
two-dimensional realm, I've got a
Yeah.
girl that really loves her, her
I'm
there,
sure.
and so they tend to do their own style. But I'm really trying to break them out of their little, this is
Yeah.
all I
Something
drive.
you they themselves come up
They
with
themselves,
instead of
but trying to be
that's kind
creative.
of my approach in creative writing, I guess. That's interesting to hear.
You
And
get a
it
prompt, and
seems,
then you just try
yeah,
to.
or we start with okay, here's what most stories have. Here's how most stories do this. Here is, and then we'll start by now here is, you're going to write a story, but you're going to use a famous character so that they don't have to think about the character at all, because one of the hardest things for students to do is to separate themselves from their character and create a character that, how would they react? So you're writing the story by saying, here's what's happening and here's how they're reacting, instead of just writing the story, if that makes any sense, which
right.
I am not I think I'm just now getting to a beginning stride of creative writing. But then ultimately it's like, well, but here's the minimum words you need, and go nuts with it. And some of them, it's a
Some of
class
them
that
go
they get
nuts.
thrown into
Yeah.
anyway, and some of them are just gonna I'm just gonna get through. Some of them, they don't turn anything in, but that's fortunately few.
Well, that's
But
how
others
they
get others get I'll hit the 600 word minimum. I gotta go a couple over, and my characters all die all of a sudden. But then there's some that just write
Knock it out of the
2,000
ballpark.
words, and or just have this really
intense, really good
very
storyline,
interesting
character development.
A student I'm pretty sure I think she's active in our class, Allison.
Oh yeah.
Amazingly talented in that class.
Right.
She's just got, and many others, creative writing students. Don't take this personally.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of
there's
other
a couple of her
artists
stories that wrote that were really clever, really clever. And so it's just given the opportunity and the tools, and just say, paintbrush goes this way. Now, what do you want to do with that information?
Yeah, because
I think that's the best way to approach it. Maybe
it's just like the techniques. And like whenever you're painting, there's certain techniques. Like in watercolor, you always paint. You always go from light to dark.
Yeah.
But in acrylic painting, you use a base, and then you start with a medium tone, and then you go lighter and darker in different areas. So you play that back and forth.
Yeah.
But there's always your basics, like perspective, aerial perspective. Things that as they get further away, what happens to them? And and you have to
yeah,
think about they get smaller, they get less detailed, they get lighter, they
Right.
get higher up in the picture plane. So you have to understand that in
Yeah.
order to be able to put anything back up there,
Yeah.
up on that field. If you're drawing a, like a swept thing with a hill and trees.
It's like the
and
kind
stuff.
of thing that maybe a good natural artist could observe over time, but it's also like human civilization has been created for thousands of years. Stand on the shoulders of these geniuses. It's like tone and mood. Here's why these are actually distinct, and here's why it's actually good to think about that ahead of time. And you just arm yourself with that knowledge of like, some people will be maybe really good at writing a character, but maybe they're not really good at writing like actual like in depth in a setting or something, or getting a voice that goes throughout, or having that character say something, or just making the jump to be like, wait, I should know this character instead of say what they do. I should know who they actually are instead of say what they do.
I used to read,
and it helps. I think that helps. I think it's
right, because I used to read.
Give them that and hope they come up with some cool stuff.
Sometimes to just detach and relax my brains, because I love reading. I do myself. I'm always an avid reader. I mean, one year I started documenting out of curiosity how many books I read, and I read like I don't know 265 books that year because I just kept writing them down. But some of them were thin, some of them were thick. But there's a very obscure artist or author, and her name was Woodowis, and she would start in a story, and it's like almost like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He was in the middle of getting that little iconic thing.
In the action.
Yeah, he was already in the action in the middle. Yeah. He didn't start up, and that's really how she was. She started her book, like how this girl was racing across the moors, and somebody was behind her, and just like compared this thing to that, and it was really interesting because your heart, you can almost feel your heart beating and getting faster because you're almost you jump into the story yourself, and that's really how I love to have artists do. Really get into their own artwork that much to where they're just tuned off of me, and they're just get in and the bell rang. Really? Okay, I gotta go. Gotta clean up now.
Immerse themselves.
Yeah, and I just really enjoy artists that do that because they really get into it. To me, I cannot talk and draw at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I close my brain is focused right there on that
really
paper.
Read that much or anything that is on creating. I can't edit and have a conversation with somebody.
Right.
I can't do that.
Just like whenever I'm doing ceramics or anything else, I'm really trying to work, and then I start slowing down. Like, I'm sorry, I'm giving a demonstration here, because I really want to get it right. I really want to make sure I'm doing what I'm doing at the same time, And so sometimes it's hard giving a demonstration whenever I'm doing a physical part at the same time
Just
because
get lost in what you're doing.
Yeah, I do. I enjoy that so much.
Well, Sue Pixley, Pickles, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me.
A lot of people don't know what that nickname.
I just call. Oh yeah, I guess I should get some context.
Well, I go to Walmart and say, "Hey, Pickles," and then I'm like, I know it's one of my older students.
I started. I think I started calling you Pickles first, but I don't know
because people were the lunch lady.
Oh really? Oh,
she calls me that all the time. I think, or Pixels.
Yeah,
but
Pixels.
Pickles.
Pickles sounds funnier to me.
Yeah, I think so too.
I went with the funnier one.
Yeah. In fact, my brother used to date a girl. Her last name was Pickles. Yeah,
actually Pickles.
Her name,
she should never get married and take another name because that's a perfect last name.
Her great-grandfather was
Jeffrey Pickles.
Her great-grandfather was from Poland, and it was a 17-letter last name with only one vowel. And whenever he immigrated in Ellis Island, they said that
they just changed it to Pickles.
The story goes was that they were immigrating, and he got up to the window, and the guy was eating his lunch at the same time he was processing. He goes, it started with a P, and it looked like it, so he just, here's your new name.
Oh my gosh.
And that's where it got changed from. Yeah, and so
we got reassigned Ryden from something Swedish. I have it somewhere. My dad has the information somewhere. I can't remember what it is, but yeah.
In Germany, there are streets named after Berberich.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's streets named. My brother was in the military for 24 years, and he was living in Wiesbaden and everything, cool. and he was taking pictures of our last name in, I wouldn't say in lights, it was just a street.
Yeah.
Street would be sort of like, I don't know, Butler here.
Cool, yeah.
And so it's Berberich,
Yeah,
and
I'd love
stuff.
to run into a Ryden street, or would I? I don't know. I'm very selfish. Anyway.
Maybe it'd be a short street just for
Maybe.
you,
Yeah, just
and
for
with
my
just one
street.
house of one,
Yeah.
or a house, just one house on it.
I like my house on Hummingbird Hill, which I like to name my manors.
There you
As I get
go. There you go.
Well, Pickles, thank you so much for this
Oh, you're
time.
welcome.
I do
hope I
appreciate,
didn't take over too much of your
No.
conversation.
I
regarding art.
don't. I go off very little on this. This is just so I can look down every once in a while if I'm really stuck. Like you'll notice, I didn't do like anything on here.
Oh,
If
I
I'm really
wasn't
stuck.
really-
I
know
will,
there's a lot of other
I
questions.
stuck to.
The
some
irony is I
very
didn't teach much about talk
basic
much about
things.
art.
We really did get
or
into
teaching.
the history at first. It's and it's
Right.
amazing how fast. I mean, we've been doing this for an hour and 15 minutes,
my
almost an hour
goodness. Oh my
20.
Well, I
This is
will
a
tell you
record
one
breaker,
thing.
Yeah, it goes very quickly. Like next thing you know, it's
Right.
been gone.
I'm not like some other ones that talk on and on, but I will say this. One of the kids were talking about how I said how I have a lot of other jobs before teaching, and they go,
Mhm.
"Oh, really? Okay. Well, some of these people they got straight out of school teaching." I go, "Well, let me make a list." So I started making a list of every single job I actually got paid for
Mm-hmm.
since I've been a kid their
Yeah.
age. I'm up to number 47.
Oh wow, yeah. I was starting to do the mental math on me, and it's
But
definitely
some of
double
them
digits.
were.
But
I was working full time
that
somewhere
many,
else,
yeah.
and I would get sideline jobs. I mean, heck,
Yeah.
I was a door-to-door book salesman in Birmingham,
Wow.
Alabama,
Jeez.
and and then of course I was working at a newspaper in Dupont, Illinois, and then I was up north working at I was working also at a campground, and you know, so I
Yeah.
have a lot of these jobs, and sometimes part-time jobs, and sometimes last for a few months. And while I was working at Whirlpool, I had several other jobs that are sideline jobs because I don't know, I'm just one of these. I'm not going to sit and go down to the basement and veg out and play video games all day long. I want that social interaction. I want to interact with people, and I love that because I just love, you know, my kids tell me I talk too much whenever I'm out in public. And I enjoy it.
Well, I know I do too. 'Cause
I know,
I am
you're
a, I am a
beating me
talking.
today.
I'm a chatty person myself.
Yes.
But.
Yeah.
Well, Sue, thank you so much for talking. Like I said, it was really nice to kind of catch up and get to know a couple other things about you. And
thank you.
to Richland County High School, you
Thank you.
matter, Miss Pixley.
Yes, well, thank you. I hope I matter. I hope I have an impression upon somebody when 20 years from now they'll say, "Hey, I remember that art teacher of mine. She was sort of crazy, funny, quirky, and I really had a good time in her class.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot." That's what I want them to say.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks again to Sue Pixley for talking to me for such a long time and having such a great conversation, and also just being willing to, you know, talk about stuff that may not have been easy to talk about sometimes, but I really enjoyed our conversation. Once again, I'm sorry about the video dropout towards the end of the interview there if you're watching us on video. So thank you, Sue Pixley, for talking to me. We're getting very close to the school year starting, and now that the play Harvey is done, I will get these last 3 interviews up in pretty quick sequence. The next one coming up will be with Mr. Dunn, and then our final episode for this season is going to be with Chad LaCrone. Thank you for listening and watching, and remember that no matter who you are, you matter. Our School Matters, with your host, Jeffrey Ryden, produced by the Richland County VAT Club. Executive produced by Jeffrey Ryden. Multicam video recording operator is Brendan McGlasson. Theme and incidental music composed and performed by The Pets. Research provided by VAT Club members. Our School Matters is hosted by the Voices of Richland County Podcast Network, an RCHS VAT Club affiliate. Please rate and review this show on Apple Podcasts, and we may read your comments on our show. You can also contact us at vatclub@rccu1.net. Subscribe to us on your preferred podcast app, or you can see videos of all new episodes starting with Season 2 on the Richland County VAT Club Facebook and YouTube pages.
Is our cam rolling in case that goes out?
I don't, actually.
Do you have
I
that?
don't. I usually do, but I forgot all my SD cards at home. Give me one sec. Okay.
You forgetting SD cards?
Oh, shut up.
No, I will
Okay.
not about you forgetting the SD cards.
You should be unsurprised at this point.
You're talking to the person who's literally had to run across the entire building.
You know,
like,
and run
3
across cars
times.
too. You know, he hit me with his car. He ran into my parked vehicle.
Oh, did he? I think I did hear this. That's right. When was this?
Just this fall,
I
wasn't it?
could
Right
tell-
before Christmas.
I can tell by the look on his face he loves this being brought up right now.